What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of Horror Theory. Welcome everyone to Horror Theory, the best horror related show here on the planet. And with that being said, everyone, we have a lot of things that we want to talk about here in this episode of the show. So let's get into it. A game that was announced at Gamescom 2023 at opening night live was Killing Floor 3. This is a franchise, guys, I know very little about up to this point in time, but when they announced it at Gamescom, I gotta tell you, it is one of my most anticipated games of the future now because, first of all, it being an FPS, which of course, you know, Call of Duty is one of my favorite games of all time, and it being an FPS horror experience, and it's got co-op and all of these other, you know, elements to it, makes me very, very excited about this franchise. And what we could maybe see out of it are things that I want to talk about in this first segment of the show. So let's talk about everything that we know up to this point about Killing Floor 3. Let's have a real conversation about it in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So guys, this is an article that is coming to us from PC Gamer and Tyler Wild of the company, saying that Tripwire has revealed that the 6-player co-op FPS sequel is in development now. So Valve is, of course, allergic to the number stopping at Left 4 Dead 2, and that series was spiritually continued by Turtle Rock with Back 4 Blood, whose name alludes to it being the 4th game in the co-op zombie FPS series, despite no 3rd game existing. It started to feel like the number really was cursed, but Tripwire has now grounded us with the announcement of Killing Floor 3 at Gamescom. So, that being said, guys, the first thing I want to say is, yeah, Valve is a company that we had wanted a spiritual successor, or we wanted a continuation really of Left 4 Dead, and we never got it. Now, Valve, of course, came back around and they made a sequel to CSGO, which was something that I was like, had been saying on this YouTube channel, pounding the table, saying we need a CSGO 2. They finally did that, but in ways, Valve has been very complacent, and there's been a lot of other companies that are now coming into the fray that are competing against that of Left 4 Dead, even though Killing Floor 3 has things that remind me of a Left 4 Dead. It's got a lot of Doom elements to it. It's got a lot of other elements and other games within it. You can just tell. But that being said, I'm really excited for this game to exist for sure. Maybe even something kind of similar to like a Rainbow Six Extraction. I'm really, like I said, Killing Floor 3 though, from what we saw of the announcement and everything, I'm all in on this game so far. So it never went as mainstream as Left 4 Dead, but the Killing Floor series has deep PC roots. It started as an Unreal Tournament 2004 mod, which Tripwire turned into a standalone game in 2009. In 2016, the developer released Killing Floor 2, which today sustains a modest but healthy base of players, some of whom play on bizarre modded servers the last time I checked. That's what you want to see in a long-running multiplayer PC game. So Killing Floor 3, guys, this will be another class-based shooter where up to 6 players run around urban and rural areas killing waves of zombies, mutant Zeds in the fiction, and fighting grotesque bosses. The year is 2091, 70 years after the events in Killing Floor 2, and Megacorp Horzine has produced the ultimate army, an obedient horde of bioengineered monstrosities called Zeds, the studio said in a press release. Now the only thing standing between these infernal creatures and the future of humanity is the rebel rogue group known as Nightfall. So, obviously, guys, this is what seems to be, even though, you know, you're going up against waves and waves of the horde, the Zeds, it seems to me that you're going to be going at this thing with a number of other people. Like I said, having a co-op experience is absolutely huge. What's going to be interesting to me is, will this only be a co-op game? They're kind of dubbing it as just a co-op experience. Are you going to be able to play this solo? Are you going to be able to, are there going to be other multiplayer modes? Because this kind of reminds me, yes, of course, of Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood, but even games like Gears of War's Horde mode, which obviously Gears of War is another one of my favorite games of all time. So when you're mixing some of these things into this package, I that's what gets me so excited about this title. Now, one thing Killing Floor 2 particularly prided itself on was its gore, and based on the Gamescom teaser, Tripwire hasn't lost its passion for this. Harnessing the power of Unreal Engine 5, Tripwire will build upon the legacy of the series, realizing its gruesome graphical vision, read the press release. Now, there is no release date that has been announced for Killing Floor 3 yet, but it does have a Steam page which says it's coming soon. Tripwire hasn't otherwise hinted about how far along it is, saying in the press release that Killing Floor 3 is currently in development for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. So, obviously, guys, the main things here, we don't have a release date. Right now, what we know is that it is absolutely a co-op FPS horror game, and that's all I need to know. Really, at this point. Obviously, I would love to know when the release date's going to be, but all I will say to Tripwire, if any of the folks over there are watching this, is look, at the bottom line is that there is a lot of people excited about this title. People who didn't even know about Killing Floor, about the franchise up to this point, like myself, who are now invested into like learning more about this franchise. And we're about to, I'm definitely going to be going back and playing the other games for sure after seeing this announcement trailer, but I'm really excited now about the future and what Killing Floor 3 really could all be about. Like I said, so many great horror games are coming out, but what I love about this is that this has a lot of, it seems like it's taken things from a number of different games like, like I said, Doom, Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood, GTFO even, Rainbow Six Extraction. I really want this game to not only be a game that is awesome at launch, but has a roadmap for the future. A lot of things that are going to get added to it over time, because I want this to be an experience that you come back to over and over again. Now, it being co-op, if it's only going to be a co-op experience, what's tough about that is, even though I think it's awesome, it would be awesome if there was a story mode, even if it was later down the road, and then there was also, multiplayer modes where you could go up against other people across the globe, right? We talk about the full package all the time, that being single player, multiplayer, and co-op modes, and this obviously has one of those things, right? Co-op, which I think is great because it gets you to play with other people, but it would be also really neat to see if we're going to have any single player experiences, and then if we want to go versus other people, like a PvP sort of style where you're playing as the corporation, and then there's obviously the Zeds would be what you're going up against. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, and I'm going to be giving you guys more information as it comes out, and it'd be awesome if we can get some of the guys and girls over at Tripwire here on the show to talk about Killing Floor 3. So I would love to see something like that happen so that we can have real conversation about it in the future. But so far, what do you guys think about Killing Floor 3? Are you guys really excited about it? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Killing Floor 3 content and videos, stay here with zrotv. A game that I've been talking about and really excited about is the continuation of Alan Wake in the form of Alan Wake 2. This is a title, guys, that, so many fans across the globe have wanted to see a continuation of, and we're finally getting it. And the first Alan Wake I thought was great in terms of building a lot of that suspense to what this franchise and this IP really could be, and now Remedy bringing this franchise back into the fray. I want to talk about all the things that we know now about this title, and we can talk about, the things that we want, the things that we could potentially see in the future with this franchise moving forward. So let's talk about it. So guys, this is an article coming to us from Kat Bussell of Tech Radar. Alan Wake 2 is bringing back horror. Alan Wake 2 is coming out very soon indeed, marking the first entry into the weird and wacky series in over a decade. From what's been shown off so far, it's clear that the developer intends to put out a full-on survival horror title with Alan Wake 2. And yeah, guys, what we've seen so far, this game is giving you a lot of mystery, a lot of survival, but a ton of horror elements to it as well. And that's something that I'm really excited about for sure, because obviously horror being one of my favorite, genres when we talk about in gaming or just entertainment in general, it gets me really, really excited, especially when we saw some of these other trailers that have been released, even from most recently Gamescom. This is going to be something special, guys. It's safe to say that Alan Wake 2 is definitely one of this year's most anticipated games. So here's what we know, guys. We know that this is a psychological thriller. We know that it's going to be coming out, which is most important, October 27th of 2023, and you'll be able to play this on PS5, Xbox Series X, S, and PC. So Alan Wake 2 will launch on October 27, 2023. This is 10 days later than initially planned following a recent delay. Remedy explained in a tweet that the reason for the delay was due to the crowded release schedule surrounding the original release date. And I'm totally okay with this. It was originally going to be October 17th, and now it's October 27th. Guys, October is a month full of tons of games, and a lot of games that look like are going to be incredible AAA experiences. So them moving it, it makes complete sense to me. So Remedy has confirmed that Alan Wake 2 will be available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S, and PC. Interestingly, the game will be a digital-only release. This could change in the future, but according to an FAQ on the game's official website, Remedy is skipping physical in order to keep the price of the game at $59.99, which I think is really, really fascinating to me, that they're not going to release it as a physical copies. And to keep that price down, I mean, hey, you know what? It might actually do awesome for Remedy. It could blow up in their face when people want to go and buy a physical copy instead of doing digital, but so much it's digital nowadays, it makes a lot of sense for them to do this to keep the price down. And so I'm totally okay with that. Obviously, guys, here's what we know about this game in terms of the story. So though little has been confirmed about the specifics of Alan Wake 2's story, the finality of the first game, as well as the subsequent DLC, have written some pretty interesting things story-wise. So at the end of the first game, Alan found himself trapped in the dark place, the Lovecraftian parallel dimension from which the darkness that hunted him seemed to originate. In DLC episode entitled The Signal and the Writer, Alan was able to free himself by confronting a twisted mirror version of himself. Alan Wake 2 will play over 3 hub areas: Bright Falls, the primordial forest surrounding Cauldron Lake, and the rundown town of Watery. The Dark Place will also feature presenting a shifting, looping reality. In the latest trailer, Anderson and Alan Wake do meet each other, so it seems as though Alan may be getting out of the nightmare realm at some point in the game. Time will tell. So a big question is who is Agent Saga Anderson? So Agent Saga Anderson's and FBI agents sent on an investigation to solve a string of ritualistic murders in Bright Falls. She then discovers a page from a horror story, which then starts to describe real-world events happening in the town. This is how she learns of Alan Wake and his disappearance almost 13 years ago. Things seem to be pretty standard over-the-shoulder third-person shooter, akin to more modern survival horror titles like Resident Evil 2 Remake. We know that guns will once again be used to dispatch monstrous enemies, and that the flashlight will be a key tool for keeping them at bay and for exploration. Though we've seen a decent amount of gameplay now, information as to what we might expect from Alan Wake 2 is still fairly sparse. There are a few nuggets of information floating about that can help us piece things together, however. So what I think's awesome, though, even though we know a lot of things about the title, there's a lot of mystery though to it as well, which I think's awesome that Remedy has done this, where they haven't shown us too much, where it feels like we've already played the game. We talk about just game trailers, especially movie trailers, where they show us too much, and then it's like, well, I basically have seen the whole movie. Then if you go see the movie, you feel like you've already seen the entire thing, and then everything good was in the trailer. That's one thing with Remedy that I love here, is that they're showing us a lot of awesome content, but at the same time they're keeping a lot close to the chest, so that they're not giving away the entirety of the story. So in a special 12th anniversary blog post, Remedy announced that Alan Wake 2 will be the developer's first survival horror game. The implication here is that we will see more survival elements in the sequel than we saw the original Alan Wake, which focused more on psychological horror. This certainly tracks with the footage we've seen so far, especially with the cultish vibes represented by the deer-headed folk seen in the newest trailer. Now, I still believe, guys, with Alan Wake 2, I'm still kind of seeing a number of psychological horror elements to it, but I think that they're really diving even deeper into that horror space, and I think that's absolutely awesome. So with that being said, guys, in February of 2023, Remedy CEO Tiro Virtala announced that Alan Wake 2 is in full production, and it is playable from start to finish. Vertala went on to say that the studio will then move on to polishing the experience, affirming that Alan Wake is a unique brand that holds high value for the company today. So that's absolutely awesome as well. Now, that being said, Sam Lake has confirmed on Twitter that Alan Wake 2 will be a third person like the first game and that voice actors from the original game will return for the sequel. So, look, at the end of the day, guys, like I said, they're keeping a lot of things close to themselves, that being Remedy, which is really awesome. At the same time, though, some of the things that I would love to see here in Alan Wake, obviously, we want this to be an experience that we can come back to over and over again after beating the game. I would love to see them kind of expand this world by creating it into somewhat of a full package moving forward. Now, they did do DLC for Alan Wake 1. Alan Wake 2, I'm assuming that they're going to be doing something similar to this to kind of keep people coming back to the experience over and over again, which I think is awesome. Maybe they could do a little spin-off or something of that nature. And then having multiplayer elements would be really fascinating to me as well. How you would do it, I mean, you definitely could, where you're solving mysteries and stuff along the journey and creating this interesting element of PvP. I think that could be really interesting as well. I think that this is endless in terms of what they could potentially do, that being Remedy with Alan Wake 2. And I really hope that this is a great entry into the franchise, which it really brings more eyeballs to it, and then it creates more and more of these games in the future. But let me know what you guys think about Alan Wake 2. Up to this point, what we know so far, what do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Alan Wake 2 content and videos, stay here with zrotv. There's a new horror game coming out, guys, called Post Trauma, and this is a game coming to us published by Raw Fury, and I'm really intrigued by this one. This is one, guys, that kind of flew under the radar on, in terms of games that I was really tracking, and as we were getting more and more information, I'm getting more excited about it, and I'm sure a number of you are as well. Let's talk about it, and let's have a real conversation about it. Let me know what you guys think about Post Trauma in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So in an article, guys, coming to us from Bobby Anhalt of Game Rant, an intense atmospheric horror game reminiscent of the Resident Evil series gets a new eerie trailer and a 2024 release date. A new unnerving trailer for the indie horror game Post Trauma was released and confirmed its 2024 release window. The Raw Fury published title appears to be reminiscent of a Resident Evil game with its nightmarish monsters and puzzle-based exploration. Announced to be in development back in 2021, Post Trauma claims Silent Hill to be a major influence. While that comparison certainly makes sense, the fixed camera horror adventure has been shown off several times since and drawn comparison to the acclaimed Resident Evil franchise as well. Post Trauma will be the first game from indie developer Red Soul Games, a studio that started as a one-person passion project, but has grown into a small team of dedicated horror fanatics. And I love this story, guys. The story of Post Trauma is awesome in terms of how this all came about, having, one person who just believed in the vision, and now it's a small team of people that are working on this thing. And I love hearing this because it kind of reminds me of Quantum Air. You've got four brothers that just wanted to make something really special, and this kind of reminds me of that. And so the nearly minute-long trailer follows Roman, a middle-aged train conductor, as he looks to find his way out of a strange and horrifying location. In addition to various clips of Roman investigating the world around him and interacting with various puzzle boxes within the world, the trailer also occasionally showcases a first-person perspective. The trailer ends with a mysterious voice who appears to act as some sort of guide for Roman. The game is coming to both PC and consoles. However, the specific home console platforms have yet to be named. It's easy to see why fans of the genre are excited about Post Trauma. If a creator is going to borrow from another horror title, then it makes sense for them to be inspired by two of the best. With new games from either franchise still a way out, Post Trauma looks to insert itself at just the right time. However, Resident Evil fans should look forward to September 21st as developer and publisher Capcom looks to share more info about the upcoming titles. So, look, I gotta say, guys, this is a game that I believe has a lot of potential to become a long-withstanding franchise. just because it's taking things from Silent Hill and Resident Evil doesn't mean that it's going to, just be a copy and paste. This has its own story, has all of those things that are going to give us something that could be very special while we're awaiting those other titles. And maybe Post Trauma can just make a name for itself altogether to become, like I said, a long withstanding franchise, which is, of course, I'm all for them creating more games like Silent Hill, more games like Resident Evil. Similar to that of like Dead Space, where Dead Space has had all kinds of spiritual successors, and I'm all for it. So creators are inspired by other games all the time, especially the greats. Even the highly anticipated Alan Wake 2 takes inspiration from Resident Evil, according to developers. The real question is whether Post Trauma can deliver when fans finally get their hands on it. So obviously, guys, Post Trauma is slated to release on console and PC in spring of 2024. So what I love about this title as well, similar to that of like, say, an Alan Wake or a Killing Floor 3, what's really cool about it is that they're giving us, gameplay, they're showing us what this game is kind of about, but they're still keeping a lot of things under wraps. They don't want to just release everything to, give us everything all at once. And that way, when the game releases, we feel like we've already played the game. They're keeping a lot of mystery behind this. And I think that's awesome because when we dive into it in spring of 2024, hopefully they're able to keep that release date window and we get this game in the spring of next year. It's a really good time to be a horror fan, guys. Let's just put it that way. Let me know, though, like I mentioned in the beginning, what do you guys think about Post Trauma? What are you most excited about? And what do you think? Do you think that this game could become a long withstanding franchise? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Post Trauma content and videos, stay here with zrotv. For those of you who have been watching my YouTube channel, you know that Quantumare is a title that I am incredibly excited about. One of my most anticipated games of the future and certainly of this year in 2023. I want to talk though, guys, about everything that we want out of Quantumare. This is a title that is being created by four brothers over at Team Kill Media. And this is something that could be really special, not only for just this initial release, but what is planned for the future. And so let's talk about the things that we want. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and the things that you want in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, you guys can check out all of my Quantumare content here on the YouTube channel. And we've made a lot of content up to this point, and we're planning on creating a lot more content in regard to Quantumare. The first thing, guys, that I really wanted out of this title was to have something that was going to be a long withstanding franchise. And by all, what we've heard, what we've seen, it seems like this is planned to be not one game, not two games, but 3 games, guys. A full trilogy is what is planned for Quantumare. And I think the success of this initial game and even like the future entries could very well lead Team Kill to maybe say, hey, you know what? Let's keep on making Quantumare titles because the community loves it. And so I would love to see this be a very long withstanding franchise. Obviously, I want them to crush Quantumare and knock this one out of the park, but that is definitely the first thing. And it looks like we're at least going to be getting 3 games out of this franchise or out of this IP. The next thing, guys, and I've said this before, one of the things I would love to see in the future of Quantumare, right now, it is a single player experience. And it's going to be coming to, console as well as to PC. It seems, though, that it's going to be coming to PlayStation 5 first, and then it'll be coming later to consoles and PC. But obviously, I want it to be available for everybody. I think that's going to help with the growth of the game, growth of the franchise, for sure, when it's available amongst all the platforms, especially if they only keep it as a single player experience. What I would love to see is a addition to Quantumare where they also have multiplayer experiences like co-op modes where you go up against waves and waves of enemies, similar to that of like a Gears of War Horde mode. The creatures that have been designed in Quantumare, I think it would be very cool. I always wanted Dead Space to do something like this where it was you and your friends could go up against waves and waves of enemies. Don't take away from the single player experience by making it, co-op, and then it takes the horror out of it if you play with your friends in a single player story. But outside of that, if we could play, Quantumare co-op would be really, really cool. And even some PvP elements I think could be really interesting as well. Some of the weapons that are in this game seem like they could be very well used for like a multiplayer experience where, you know, one side are, say, firefighters, the other side are the creatures, and you go up against them, similar to like I said, like a Gears of War or something of that nature, like a shooter elements to it. So I would love to see Quantum Air come out as a single player experience, but over time, whether it's in Quantum Air or, you know, the second game in the franchise, third game in the franchise, I would love to see them expand upon it where you get those co-op modes and multiplayer modes, which is going to create, obviously, in my mind, a full package, which is really what I believe any AAA title needs to have, is something where you come back to the experience over and over again. And of course, the next thing that leads me to is DLC. I would love to see some DLC out of Quantum Air in the future, whatever that may look like. I just think that having those things, especially if you're only going to have a single player experience, you want something that's going to bring people back to the experience over and over again, and having DLC would definitely do that as well. The next thing for me, guys, you know, I think is really interesting you have like this linear experience that also seems like there's open world elements or semi-open world elements. That's going to be really interesting. But are there going to be collectibles? Are there going to be downloadable items that you can customize your gear, customize your weapon, customize your character? That would be really interesting as well. Different ways that you're upgrading your armor and so your character looks absolutely awesome. I think that that's something that could be really interesting as well. I think that this is more so something that you would want to do probably in like a co-op experience or, you know, like a multiplayer experience where your guy looks really awesome. I mean, maybe if you're customizing a lot in the single player, it takes away from that single player experience. But having customizable options and downloadable options and things of that nature, so you can, you know, earnable items essentially, that you can earn throughout the course of whether it's the story, co-op, multiplayer, that would be really cool as well. I think, guys, that the more people that we can draw in to Quantum Air, the more reasons that we give people to draw and come, you know, tie in to this franchise, the better. The last thing I'm going to say is this. There's been a lot of talk that this game is going to have some ties to Team Kill's other game that was created called Kings of Lorne. And I think that's a really interesting thing. So now we've got to go back and play Kings of Lorne to really see all about this story and maybe, just maybe, how it ties into Quantum Air. I think that that is something that could be really special, and what I also believe is that Quantum Air is going to have multiple different locations, and if it does, I'm all for it, because I think having like a variety of where you are, variety of weapons, variety of enemies, variety of different, you know, planets, all these different things could be very, very interesting, because we're hearing that there's going to be interstellar travel in this. So I think, guys, that it's setting itself up to be something very special for the horror community and just gaming in general. What do you guys think, and what are the things that you want out of Quantum Air? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Quantum Air content and videos, stay here with zrotv. One of the most acclaimed survival horror experiences that you'll find is Silent Hill. Silent Hill, guys, is a very special franchise, and it's very close to my heart. I love, you know, that they turned this thing into, really a full-blown franchise. I mean, when we talk about from movies, games, all kinds of different things within this universe, it is something special. And although I'm very excited about them coming out with some, you know, Silent Hill remakes and things of that nature, and what we've seen so far from, you know, the remake looks absolutely awesome. But I really want to see a continuation of Silent Hill, continuation of the franchise moving forward. And they probably want to see how will the remake do before we move into another full entry into the franchise. And, you know, obviously, guys, the game that always comes to my mind is Silent Hills, which was going to be Hideo Kojima's take on Silent Hill, and Norman Reedus was going to be the one starring in it. And instead, Hideo left Konami and made his own company, Kojima Productions, and then obviously, they decided to move in a direction of Death Stranding. So they moved away from Silent Hills, which is what we were going to get. And I think that was going to be the next real incredible entry into the franchise. We got the what is called PT, the playable teaser, and Hideo Kojima being behind that. What a fascinating PT was amazing. And obviously I wanted to see his take on Silent Hill. Never got it, but could we get that in the future? And I think that to answer that question, we've got to see how this remake does. I believe, guys, that there is still a massive following of Silent Hill. It's clear based on social media, to Reddit, to all these different places that you look, that there is still a very passionate fan base behind Silent Hill. Could Silent Hills ever come out? And my thought on that is that I don't believe Silent Hills will come out unless Konami decides we want to just completely spite Kojima and we're going to make the next entry called Silent Hills. But I feel that even if they just make another continuation of the Silent Hill franchise, I think that would be awesome, right? Even though it's not Hideo Kojima, I think that this franchise, it needs to continue in the future, past any remakes that are made, past all of that. They need to continue this franchise. This is a very special one, and for them to only do remakes and never do continuations, I think would be a massive disservice to this franchise. Similar to that of like a Metal Gear Solid, I think that, even though we're getting a remake here, they need to make a continuation, especially if the remake crushes it. And they're going to be looking at those numbers, guys. That's the bottom line. They're going to be looking at the numbers to see whether or not the Silent Hill, IP is worth continuing in the form of new future installments. Because they got to take into consideration, obviously, the money. That's the number one thing. But also, how many people are playing the game? What's the retention rate? What, from copies sold to how much time it's going to be to make a full-blown new game within the franchise. How long that's going to take. And, development cycles. All of that stuff, guys, goes into consideration. So I think the bottom line is if the remake crushes it, which I think it will, I believe that is going to greenlight a number of other Silent Hill games in the future. Now, is Silent Hills going to be coming out? I don't believe that it's going to be called that. Maybe they'll take some things from what Hideo was going to do with Silent Hills, but I think that what they need to do is have that after this remake, they've got a new fresh slate. Let's see, continuations of the Silent Hill franchise in the future. And I cannot wait to see Silent Hill, go back to the top of the horror genre as we know it. But let me know, guys, what do you all think about Silent Hill? Do you think we'll ever see a Silent Hills at some point or another? Or do you think they've kind of moved past that and they're going to be looking to the future of Silent Hill? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And for more Silent Hill content and videos, stay here with zrotv. I've said it multiple times and I'll say it again, that The Last of Us Part 2, in my personal opinion, is the greatest PlayStation exclusive ever made. I believe that Uncharted was for sure my favorite franchise, which of course was also made by none other than Naughty Dog. And then The Last of Us comes out and just blows my mind in terms of from story to execution, all of those. And The Last of Us Part 2, in my mind, topped the first game. And with that, a lot of people have been asking the question, where is the multiplayer experience? We got the multiplayer experience in The Last of Us Part 1, and now with Part 2, we've been waiting for that multiplayer experience. So let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2 factions and where we are currently. When can we expect this to come out and release to everyone? Because we've been waiting for it for a very long time. Let's talk about it. So that being said, guys, this is an article coming to us from Wessel Mini and Shrevenish Katsura of Jin X. The Last of Us 2 Factions is an upcoming multiplayer live service game from Naughty Dog. So Factions is the upcoming multiplayer live service title from Naughty Dog set in the Last of Us universe. The standalone multiplayer title was initially supposed to be multiplayer mode in The Last of Us 2, but thanks to the team's ambitions, it grew to become its own thing altogether. Obviously, guys, here we go. It's rumored to release sometime in 2023, which I think that is not going to be happening, guys. I think that it's going to be happening, if it does, in 2024. The development on this has been very, very long and rigorous. I think that 2024, we can probably expect this to come out. The factions mode was planned to release alongside The Last of Us 2 in 2020, though thanks to its growing scope, the studio decided to delay it and make it its own thing. The Last of Us 2 Factions features a new cast of characters and takes place in an entirely new location. Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann confirmed this info during Summer's Game Fest 2022, where he also revealed the first concept art of this upcoming project. Druckmann also briefly touched on the scope and size of the project during his segment at the Summer Games Fest 2022. It's as big as any of our single-player games, and in some ways bigger, he said. It's got a story. The way we're telling that story is unique to this game. So a lot of people were asking the question, is The Last of Us 2 multiplayer, that being Factions, going to have a battle royale mode? Well, while there has been no confirmation, plenty of rumors and leaks suggest a battle royale is coming to the standalone Factions game. The concept art features an approaching sandstorm, which could be a storm circle seen in most battle royale games. So this is really, really fascinating, guys, especially because there was some leaked source code. There also has some leaked assets from The Last of Us 2 source code that references battle royale and show final circle location. The assets also contain some survival elements like restore oxygen. So this is really, really fascinating stuff. I think if they had a battle royale mode in The Last of Us, universe, it could be the biggest royale in the world for sure. The biggest in the whole world, guys. I mean, sure, you got Fortnite, you got all these other games out there that are still crushing it, but this could be something really special for especially the horror community and the community that loves the Last of Us universe. It could be something unbelievable. Now, while it's not confirmed, The Last of Us Factions 2 could be a free-to-play experience. Earlier this year, Naughty Dog was hiring for a monetization economy designer, which suggested a microtransaction-centric monetization model that resembles freemium titles. So what I will say about that is, if it's free to play, guys, it could be unbelievable. It could be as big, if not bigger, than some of these other BRs that are, standing alone in that universe to this day. And I think that The Last of Us Factions 2 could definitely compete against some of those other titles out there, especially if this is something that's not just BR. It's also like there's ultimately other things that you can do. They're talking about a story mode and things of that nature. This sounds like something very, very special, and that's why I'm all in. I'm all in for something like this, and I think it could be something really huge, actually, for the community. So Factions 2 as a free-to-play title would make a lot of sense. It could be huge considering the popularity of the Last of Us franchise. It could also fill the void of a AAA free-to-play first-party title that generates constant revenue for PlayStation. Bottom line is this. We know certain things about it. We know that there's been some leaks, some rumors, speculation, and we know it's coming at some point. Is it going through some development hell? It's hard to say. But if they're making this a full-blown, scope almost game, so to speak, Naughty Dog takes their time. And so this doesn't really surprise me much that they're taking their time with this. They want to make sure they've got everything down that they need to make this the best experience possible. And I'm all for it. I am all for Factions 2. I cannot wait till it comes out, and I'll be making a lot more content about Factions 2 in the coming months, guys. Let me know, though, what do you all think about The Last of Us Part 2 Factions? Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. And for more Factions 2 content and videos, stay here with zrotv. Not only is The Last of Us Part 2 my favorite game ever made on PlayStation, The Last of Us as a franchise at this point, Part 1 and Part 2, are two of my favorite games of all time, regardless of, console or PC. It is one of my favorite franchises ever. And obviously with the show that came out, the show is absolutely incredible. The team over at Naughty Dog has really taken great care of this franchise at this point, and that's why they take so much time to bring something out like The Last of Us Factions 2. We've been waiting for so long for Factions 2 to come out, and they're just taking their time with it. And I'm totally on board with them taking their time with this upcoming multiplayer experience that's going to bring us back to the game over and over and over again, and to the franchise over and over again. But one question I have is about The Last of Us Part 3. There's been no confirmation of it. Neil Druckmann had mentioned that, you know, if they want to make another game in the Last of Us franchise, they absolutely will. But it's totally up to them, and Sony has given them complete control of their franchises and trust their judgment on these things. And I think that really says a lot about Naughty Dog, first of all. I mean, they had Uncharted, which was incredibly successful. They dive into something new with The Last of Us. That's been incredibly successful. I'm sure they're talking about some untitled games that, you know, in the future that are going to be coming out. I'm sure those are going to be awesome as well. Really, the bottom line is that whatever Naughty Dog brings out moving forward, many people, myself included, are going to be watching. We're going to be playing to at least see what it's all about, because Naughty Dog has a way of creating some very fascinating stories. They are so good at not only the action adventure elements of games, but now diving into horror more and more. That is something that they have absolutely crushed, you know, and it is something that they've done incredible numbers with. They have built this franchise into something very, very special. In my mind, topping Uncharted, when I never thought Uncharted could get really topped by something, especially from the same studio. Naughty Dog is that studio, the studio of our time that creates some incredible experiences. But will The Last of Us Part 3 come out? I gotta tell you guys, I don't think that Naughty Dog has any, you know, there's no indication that's telling me that they would not make a third game. At least to make it a trilogy at the bare minimum makes complete sense to me. Even if they wanted to round out the trilogy and say their next game, so after Factions 2, they bring out a new IP altogether, you know, I wouldn't be concerned about it, because they probably want to test the waters, maybe with something else, get those creative juices flowing, and they can consider, you know, coming back and working on another Last of Us game, that being The Last of Us Part 3 or Part 4, wherever they are in terms of development. The Last of Us Part 3 has such a, you know, there would be so much anticipation, so much hype, so much excitement for that title, especially if Factions 2 does incredibly well. When The Last of Us Part 3 would get announced, so many people, and they could use The Last of Us Part 2 factions to promote Part 3. I just think it makes total sense to create a third title in this franchise. Whether you wanted to round out Ellie's story, whatever it is that you wanted to do, you could absolutely do it with a third game. I don't think that they have any, in my mind, any indication that this is a series that is done at this point after 2 games. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They would at least do a trilogy before they would move on to something else. And I think that they would test the waters with something else to see how another franchise does before giving up on The Last of Us, or letting that one go before they move on to something else. Kind of like with Uncharted, they make all these games, and, you know, The Last of Us comes into the fray, and obviously the popularity of The Last of Us probably gave them that peace of mind, letting Nathan Drake's story go and moving on to Ellie and Joel and the story that we got in The Last of Us. But what do you guys think? Do you think that we'll ever get a Last of Us Part 3? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts about this. Let's have a real conversation about it in the comment section down below. And for more The Last of Us Part 3 content and videos, stay right here with zrotv. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of Horror Theory. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.